Hey everybody, Blair Nightingale here once again. This is the Wednesday Wisdom broadcast for Tradeway. What are we doing on these Wisdom Wednesdays? I've said this before, try to say that 7 times fast. What are we doing on here? Okay, well, for those of you who've been with us already, you know that we are looking at the keys to breakthrough. I'm giving you 8 keys to breakthrough. Okay, these are very specific, very powerful keys. You can apply them to your life, any area of your life. This isn't just stuff that I'm coming up with. This is things that I've seen used, that I have personally used, that I feel like the Lord has led me to use over the last 15 plus years to create tremendous momentum and breakthrough in my life, breaking through challenges, breaking through things from family patterns to dreams and desires, career, massive spiritual breakthroughs, relational and emotional transformations, financial breakthroughs. Whatever it is, I can give you stories and testimonies of how these keys at different times have created that kind of power and momentum in my life. So I am wanting to give that to you, and we've said this many times as well. We're thinking of our lives like a garden, okay? And the garden that grows greatly is one that is tended to properly. And breakthrough itself is like a garden if the conditions are optimal. Now, those of you who've been tuning in with us have heard me say this multiple times, but I think this is a very helpful picture to go back to. Certainly, I find it very encouraging because it clarifies. If I can create optimal conditions in this garden for breakthrough, for growth, then change, progression, and growth. I'll say that again. Change, progression, and growth doesn't have to be so hard. And sometimes we want breakthroughs, and it remains in the dream area of our minds and lives. It remains in the fantasy even. Okay, but this is about putting specific things into action that will actually begin to create momentum so that those breakthroughs, those dreams, those desires, those changes are becoming reality. Okay, the goal is to move forward. God is calling you to something. God is teaching you something. He's always speaking. He's revealing something. He has a plan and a purpose for us that he has created beforehand that we may walk in it. And the enemy has an interest and an agenda to hold us back internally and externally from moving forward. Okay? I'm not talking about the American dream here. I'm talking about the kingdom purpose that you have on this earth today. I said this already. When I become my best, it's not all about me. This isn't all about me. But when I become my best in him, everybody around me gets the best of him in and through me. And I need that from you. I need you to come into that too. You need me to come into that too. Because when we do that, we synergize with strength and grace and power. We come together. And so that's what these keys are about. That's why I take such a passionate interest in this. And today, you've seen, today we're talking about the power of community. Now, this cannot be undervalued. It cannot be understated because, again, if we're looking at this garden and we're trying to say, what are the conditions that if I would tweak them, change them, like sunlight, water, soil, do we need a cage around it? Do we need a certain kind of topsoil and a certain kind of fertilizer? Do we need all the different things that we need? Keep bugs out, rabbits out. They're all very, very important. And community is a huge one for that ecosystem in your life to thrive. And we're going to talk about that today. So that is the power of community. Here's an interesting thing about the power of community. Think of when James says life and death are in the power of the tongue, right? So it's not just one. It's not just that there's life in the power of the tongue and you can use it or not use it. There's life and there's death in the power of the tongue. You could go either way. And we need God to change that and work in that in our lives so that what we speak and what we say and what we do is truth and light and love and so on. Well, community works the same way. Because I can have a community exposure, that's what I'm going to call it, a community exposure that is creating momentum, energy, clarity, edification, power, motivation, inspiration. Or I can have a community or elements of a community that are creating anxiety, depression, demotivation, inhibition, fear, shame. The list goes on for both sides. For both sides. And when we talk about in a minute here, the exponential power of who you're surrounding yourself with, right? That's a pretty big deal because it could be positive or it could be negative. So the question to start with right now is, for me, for you, is community in your life mostly? We're not looking for perfection here. We're looking for progression. We're not looking to arrive. We're looking to progress. So, simple question, is community in your life, is it energizing the call of God on your life? Is it energizing the identity that he's given you? Is it energizing courage, faith, love? Is it energizing you or is it de-energizing you? That's first question, right? First assessment. Now, for some of us, we just haven't been asking this question. And I know today we're going to touch on some things where I think some of this feels like, well, geez, I don't know. This is maybe a little complicated. Maybe not quite that simple, Blair. I want to touch on some of that today. But really, for some of us, we're just not really even maybe asking this question. We're not asking God this question. We're not asking ourselves this question, or maybe some trusted people in our lives. We're not asking that question. What can we do? We can ask ourselves, which boat am I in? Which boat am I in? Because we can apply the other keys or attempt to apply the other keys and find that community that needs to be altered is like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. It's like a hole in the bottom of our feet. Now, we talked about mindsets as well, and I would pull that back in right now. Mindsets can be the difference between us being able to be filled, or they can be like a hole in the bottom of the feet. People pour in, you pour in, God pours in, but it just keeps going right out the bottom. Well, community works a little bit different. If it's negative, it can drain. So this is important. I want to take a look at this. So as always, as we dive in here, if you are joining us today, I'm so happy to have you on here. I honestly am. I hope you can tell that I'm passionate about this stuff. And I want to tell you, I am specifically pressing into this key this week. All right, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But I have some guys in my life that I have gathered in the mornings and at nights the last 2 days. We're going to do a 7-day challenge, a 7-day blast in my own life, because there's a couple of areas that I want to see massive progression, massive change, massive growth. So I'm gathering these guys and we're going after it together every day. And it's more powerful to do it together than to do it alone. And I knew that, and I knew I needed that. So I've called them together. So I just want you to know, I am using this. This is practically being applied in my life. So again, didn't just pull this out of nowhere. There are things we can do to get this exponential power, and I want you to have that. So I mean it when I say I'm happy to have you on here, whether you're live today or you're joining us on the recording. As always, go ahead, drop a comment in there, say hi. I'd love to see the names and where you're from. Of course, questions. We've had some great questions the last few weeks. So if you want to throw some questions out there as we move through, I will continue to check that, and then I can throw your question up on the screen. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. If you've got something you want to clarify or ask, then I would be happy to answer that. So that said, excuse me, we've been talking mostly about ourselves and God, right? That's where we've laid a foundation, is what's happening on the inside and what's happening spiritually, and the power that we get from that. And this obviously is about what's happening around us. And of course, who is happening around us. So I asked that simple question already. Primarily, do I have communities in my life that are connected to the breakthroughs, the progression, the growth, the goals, the values that I want to see? It's not about judging people who may not align with that. This isn't about people being good or bad. This is about just aligning with people who are headed in the same direction. They're, if you will, they've got the same energy. And I mean that on a just very physical, practical level, even emotional, spiritual. They have the same energy, reason, motivation. And when they come together, they actually encourage that in you as well. So this isn't about judging people who maybe are in a different place, but it's about assessing in your life who has access to you, who has access to your heart. And that's the important first question to ask. As I said, are they empowering or are they disempowering the goals that I am committed to? It's amazing. We can try. It's uphill. It's just an uphill battle. When we are, example, we're trying to learn trading and we're around people all the time who talk bad about our trading or talk bad about trading in general or investing in general, right? It's just negative. And you feel like you have to prove them wrong, which beyond the scope of what we're talking about today, but needing to be right and trying to prove somebody wrong as your motivation for trading or taking trades, by its very nature, poisons your trading with fear of being wrong. And that will work against you and actually help create a situation where you aren't doing as well. Now, that's a crazy idea, but it's true. Fear creates what it tries to avoid. And in that case, a lot of that comes because of constant exposure to people who just don't get what you're doing. And hopefully, if you're going down a road and you're pursuing something, you're in communion and contact with the Lord, and you know this is something that you are called to do. Can we afford to have people in the room, as it were, that are breaking that down instead of building that up? Now, again, I understand that's not always so simple. We are going to come back to that, but the principle still stands. It's true. You know, Jesus went to heal the young girl who had died and they laughed at him and he sent them out of the room. Jesus sent them out of the room so he could focus on and do what the Father had called him to do. So I want you to think about a couple of things. Incredible strength can come from this. So think about this. There's just some famous phrases, okay? You've probably heard one or both of these at some point. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around, okay? If anybody's ever heard that. Tom Curley, I see you there. Martha, I see you there. Just checking in on the comments. Tom Curley, it's like when mom said who you hang out with is who you become like. And that's just another version, really, of what I just said, right? It's really, the next phrase is even closer. This, remember I said I was going to say 2. The second one, show me your friends and I'll what? I'll show you your future. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Those are 2 very popular statements. Now, I would just add quickly, I don't think we definitively know that it's the 5, that it's exactly 5, okay? There was a famous, I would say motivational speaker, if you will, that I think very much popularized that statement. It was probably in the late 80s, early 90s. Jim Rohn was his name, and he said that. But the principle is true. The principle is true. Like, who is around you? Who is accessing your heart? Remember, the Bible says to guard your heart with diligence, right? For from it flow all the issues of life. So those phrases, 5 people, who are those 5 people for you? Again, I think it's more broad than that. Who are we looking at on TV? Who are we following on Facebook? What are we reading? There's other sources of major social influence than just maybe those 5 people. But the relationships we have, those are a big deal. So what are those 5 people? Who are those 5 people? And are you, as a group, going in the direction or cultivating the energy that is really what you want to be cultivating? Okay? Those people, your friendships. Now, we've got families at home and we've got kids of different ages and all this kind of thing. But what's being cultivated in your home? What's being cultivated with your spouse? But really, even friends and community in your life. Who are those 5 people and which direction are they going? What are those relationships really based on? That has a huge impact on your life, okay? That has a huge impact on what you can do because of the energy that you have. So the positive and the negative, I talked about life and death, right? So are they people who are creating energy or are they people who are draining energy? Okay, now I said a few times, this isn't so simple in that, okay, well, I have, Martha said, I may have this wrong, but here's one. Bad fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Yeah, I mean, the idea is that whether it's bad or good fruit or what you want or what you don't want, the idea is that we're heavily influenced by our parents, by our family. So we take on a lot of their tendencies and traits, some of their positive ones, some of their negative ones, and they say, for that reason, that picture doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, remember I said at the beginning, I've actually I've taken great things from my parents, but we all take a mix of good and bad, in some cases more good, in some cases more bad, depending on your story. I have taken some of both myself, but even the bad things I've had to overcome, community and people who had the breakthroughs that my parents didn't ever get, right? I'm not perfect, they're not perfect, but the breakthroughs they didn't get, I've connected with other community, other people who do have those things. So I don't stay in the same spot, but I'm actively looking for people who carry the breakthroughs. We talked about this a little bit with mentorship. Who are the people who actively carry the breakthroughs, the culture of the garden, if you will, that we want to see? Community can help you do that. Community will help you do that. It's amazing how you can try so hard to do something on your own, and it can be a struggle. But when you surround yourself with people who highly value that very thing that you're struggling to do, it can, just because of the social environment. Now, this can be positive and negative. And that's my point. But just because of the environment, they can help you to get that breakthrough. They can guide you. I'm going to look at some specifics here in a minute. But again, and this is partially going off of like what Martha is saying, bad fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Again, could be bad, could be good fruit, but let's just say bad fruit. What if I have a relationship in my life or something, a culture in my life, and I realize, what? This is actually not creating what I want it to create. Is this Blair saying, well, I guess there's a few people I need to just chop out of my life? Well, I'm not going to sit on here on YouTube, not knowing you, on Facebook, not knowing you, and say, yep, that's it. You should cut XYZ person out of your life. Well, Blair said, right, I'm not going to do that. I don't know your situation. I don't know what it is. I can tell you this right now. Some things do need to go. I've had toxic relationships around my life before, especially when I was younger and I didn't have a lot of wisdom. I hadn't grown in the Lord a lot. And I've even had the Lord ask me, hey, release that person to me. Release that person to me. And give me a minute here, because I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on this. I want you to stick with me on this, because this is a really important piece. I don't know your full situation, but I am saying it's not that never happens. And keep in mind, I'm not talking about covenant relationships here. I'm not even going to go there. I'm not talking about covenant relationships. Okay. So that's not what I'm referring to. But if something is not creating that energy, it's actually draining you. It's creating negative energy. It's very difficult. You know that you are called to do something, to adopt a belief. Something is draining. Something is negative. Something is abusive. Something is just not focused. Something is just not motivated. It's just not going to work. And you want to have a place in your life where community is actually pushing you, then consider this. Consider this illustration quickly, okay? You imagine you are in your house, okay? Now, you're looking out the front window and a car drives by on the street, okay? A car drives by on the street. That could happen all day, every day, not a big deal. You're probably not even hardly going to think about that. You might think about it a little if the street is busier than it's been, but other than that, it's just going to be normal life. But consider this. As soon as somebody stops and pulls into your driveway, that's a pretty big difference, isn't it? They used to drive by. Now there's somebody sitting in your driveway. Okay. And looks like they're not turning around. They didn't just pull in to turn around. Okay. Now they've got out of the car and they're at the door. They're at the door. That's considerably different than even being in the driveway or certainly being on the street. Then they knock on the door. What if this person is let into your entryway? Or from there, invited into your living room? Or from there, invited into your kitchen? Okay, into your fridge. They walk in your house, go straight to your fridge. Think about this. Blair, what are you talking about right now? What is this? I'm saying you've got people, many, many, many people in this life and in this world. And some of them are in your life. They're not just driving by on the front of the street. But we get to decide, even if we're not deciding whether or not they're in our lives, we can decide whether or not they're going to be let into the deepest parts of our home, if you will. It's just a picture, right? Are they going to be let into the deepest parts? And for some, I encourage us all to think about this strategically, prayerfully. This isn't about judging people. This isn't about cutting people out. Martha says, oh no, not the fridge. I mean, think about it. Somebody walks straight in your house, opens up the fridge, and starts throwing all the food all over the place. That person's not going to have access. I'm not going to cut off love. I'm not going to stop loving this person, but they're not going to have access to my fridge anymore. They're going to have access to my kitchen. Right? It's just not going to work that way. And that we have to be okay thinking about some of our relationships in some way, all of our relationships that way. Not because we're going to shut off love, but we're going to protect what God is doing in our lives. And we can have a capacity of relationship with that person where we love them and we're intentional with them. But again, they may not come that close. Tom Curley said, guard your hearts, as I mentioned earlier. And it's really, that's the concept. So I want to say that when we're talking about community, because again, there's two sides to this. A lot of us, we're having a hard time moving forward with new behavior, with new mindsets, with changes, because old things, old relationships that aren't willing to change or are just not empowering us. It doesn't have to be so negative, but it's just not empowering us. What if we made some changes there? And the key is making space for people who are moving that direction. They are moving that direction. I am having people in the living room, in the kitchen, but they're the people who are filled with the Spirit of God. They're filled with encouragement. They see me, I see them, the destiny on my life, the destiny on theirs, and we're synergizing and working together to do that, okay? So that is a big, big thing to consider, all right? I would just challenge you to consider that, to think strategically about relationships and community in your life. And really, we're talking about community, okay? So where can I implant myself into a community where they have the breakthrough that I want. I talked about that with the mentorship. Same thing. And I've been talking about this for years now, so it seems like it's a simple idea, and it is so simple. I think sometimes it's overlooked because this actually is an exponential power that we can begin to ask ourselves the question, where could I get more of that? This is what help groups are about. But that tends to be on the negative. We do that when there's something really negative. But what about how we can use that in the positive, right? So that I keep saying there's an exponential source of power in your life from community. But just think about this. I've got a few written down here. I'm just going to hammer them off. You get accountability, right? They can see into you. They see into your life. Nothing good grows in the dark. That's the saying. Nothing good grows in the dark. So whatever it is, if people can see you, then they can love you, right? The sun can't shine on anything that can't be exposed. So communities where people get to know us and they can bring the life and love and truth to us, but we need that connection. And they also need to be somebody who has that kind of connection with God where they can release that to you and we can release that to them. But accountability, it's not about did you do something bad? It's about, are you living up to the best of who I know you are? That's the power of community for me. I want people to understand who I am and where I'm called to go, and they don't allow me to settle for anything less than the best of what I am called to do in my life. The time is short, the days are evil, so I want that accountability. I want that empowerment. They help me with clarity. They help me to see myself clearly. They remind me who God is when the enemy gets in my head, when he gets in the way. They keep my eyes on him. So I'm not always strong enough to do it on my own, but they help me and they can help you too. They give me wisdom. There's some things I can get. I get when I'm reading the Word of God. I get when I'm praying alone in my room. But have you ever had this experience where God actually had to drive you, not out of relationship with him, he would never do that, but he actually drove you to people, right? He actually drove you because he wanted to give you a solution and an answer through the body that he was never going to give to you on your own in the prayer closet, because he's connecting us, and that's how he does it. He gives us wisdom through other people. I'm going, oh my goodness, man, I've been studying and reading and praying, and here it is. I just asked somebody and now I got it. They give me inspiration. I'm convinced that inspiration is one of the most powerful things we have for breakthrough. Inspiration, because it's the energy that keeps us going. Oftentimes we know what to do, but we can't keep doing it in a sustained fashion. But if we just kept going, then we would make that breakthrough happen. But we need inspiration. That, for me, comes from community. I need a positive flow. Again, this is about energy. This is about people helping me spiritually, emotionally, mentally. There's a positive flow. God is positive. God is positive. When I go to God, I get lifted because he's positive. Look at the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is the character of God. So there is a strong positivity with God. And those are the kinds of people that I want to be and I want to be around. That's the kind of person I want to be and the people I want to be around. They give me encouragement. They give me prayer. The list goes on. The list goes on. That's just a few, right? And I think I said this already. We go faster. We can, at least for a while. We can go faster alone, but we go further together. And in the end, it's really further and faster together, right? So here's what I don't want to see. Actually, let me spin that to the positive. Here's what I do want to see. I want to see us have, I'm going to put it this way. In my life, I'm going to build relationships that build up the best in my life. They remind me of Jesus. They remind me of what I'm called to do. They remind me of who I am. They remind me of what's important. and we synergize together to see his kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And whatever challenge, whatever breakthrough that is in front of me that I know he has called me to, they are an aid. Not that that's the purpose of the relationship, but because of who they are, they create power and momentum towards that end instead of being a drain on that. And if there is somebody in my life where that is the case, then I do relationship with them. I stay in love, but they may not have access to my heart as deeply as they have in the past because it's not producing the fruit that God would want to grow in me or in them, right? So that is the power of community, right, Martha? Glad you're pushing for your breakthrough. Yes, I do. I do journal. I don't journal the way I used to. Honestly, we could do a whole thing on journaling and processing. I don't, but I am pressing in. I'm always pressing in for breakthroughs. There's always something more, right? There's something new. There's something more. One of the things I haven't talked about in here is rest. That's actually not going to be in one of these keys yet. But the more I think about it, the more I think I need to add it. I think it needs to be in there. So I say that because I'm always pushing forward. But I am learning the power of rest, but definitely using this key, this specific key right now for community. It's massively exciting because think about this, and we'll close with this. You have something in mind that you know you want to see happen. And if it happens, it's going to be a major breakthrough. It's going to be a trajectory in your life that brings you to a greater level of breakthrough. And that means something that you come and you lay at Jesus' feet. That's the purpose of these breakthroughs. That's the expansion. This isn't just building kings and castles, right? We're expanding the ability that we have and the authority that we walk in to establish the kingdom of God on earth through our lives, through our families, and through our communities, jobs, whatever the case may be. So it matters. It's connected. And I'm hugely excited to know that I can pull this in and feel a grace, a hope, and a power because of people who are on the same page that are going to help me get there. I'm hugely excited about that. And that is what I am living right now. And I'm just inviting you guys, eat the meat, spit out the bones. What fits for you? What works for you? I'm sharing my story. I think this is a powerful key. In fact, I know it is. I know it is. So don't let this be a drainer. Let it be an empowerment in your life. Tradeway, financially, is here to be one of those communities for you. Okay? So stay plugged in right here. As always, we're back on Monday for our Market Mondays. We're posting new stuff all the time here for Tradeway. This is a community point that you can connect with. Hopefully, you're finding that these Wednesday sessions are breathing life and clarity and power into your life. That is my prayer for you. That is what I hope you get out of this time. And I hope that you're getting clear and encouraged about the breakthroughs that you want to see. And as you walk out the process, adding these keys into your life, you're going to see years and years of breakthroughs coming into place. That is my hope. That is my prayer for you. That is the way I live my life. And that is the God that we serve. So with that said, I pray that for all of us today, and that we would just bring that to his feet. Tom, thank you too. Thank you for being on here, everybody. Always a pleasure. This is the power of community. Don't deny it. Don't ignore it. I won't either, because it's powerful. Okay, Martha? You know what I do too, Martha. This has been great. This has been so edifying and encouraging to me to bring all these thoughts together. So thank you so much for being here, guys. Leave a comment. I do look at these after, so I'll go ahead and respond if you leave something there. And we will see you on Monday at 2 o'clock or next Wednesday at the same time. Okay, thanks, guys. Bye.